Hello, everyone. Welcome to Microsoft Community Insight Podcast, where we share insights from community experts to stay up to date in Microsoft. I'm Nicholas, I'll be your host today. In this podcast, we will dive into security co-pilots, but syntax in different structures, storytelling. But before we get started, I want to remind you to follow us on social media so you never miss an episode. Today, we have a special guest called Mona Ghadiri. Sorry, I couldn't pronounce his surname.
No, it's okay. Mona Ghadiri.
Ghadiri. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Nicholas. My name is Mona Ghadiri. I'm a Microsoft MVP in SIEM XDR and Security Copilot as of our recent renewals. And congrats to your renewal as well,
Yeah.
Nicholas. I know it's not a small amount of effort.
No.
I'm also a vice president at Capgemini, where I work in our cloud and infrastructure services team, working specifically on security operations and incident response. I'm excited, to be here today to talk about some syntactical overlays with cost and service design, and kind of talking about the intersections of all of them in ways that help inform where pragmatic AI choices exist with Security Copilot.
Okay, so before we get started, what does it mean by your title, syntax in Security Copilot? Just in case everyone's curious.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I realized is that not everyone who uses Security Copilot is a native English speaker. And a lot of times, small nuances in sentence structure or in syntactical choices end up making significant differences in the way that AI, will give you outputs. And so, what I have designed and what I want to share with you is a design that I created that allows for folks to take advantage of things like Security Copilot, but without the way of thinking about it like sitting in with a chatbot and typing natural language and hoping that something works out. Because if you're not a writer and you're usually used to reading books, those are not the same skills. So why would we ask someone who's generally been a reader to all of a sudden become an author? Like, that's, some people will become an author, but very, very rarely is it actually the ratio of readers to authors 1-for-1. So we're trying to take the ideas of DevOps and DevOps principles and repositories and shared services and those types of things from enterprise cloud. We're trying to take security operation, modernization, and design with like when and where to use AI and where to use hyperautomation. And we're also kind of trying to solve for this problem that even if all of us aren't the same readers and writers, the ability to recall or run the exact prompt that you ran before 2 weeks later is a very, very useful and efficient thing. And if we're not storing and we're not treating those prompts like they're code, and we're not thinking about Security Copilot implementation as code, we're going to have a much harder time trying to bring things like security operations along for the ride with our AI transformations.
Okay, so it's like in DevOps, you secure like a code base, but in AI, you'll be securing the prompt itself for Security Copilot.
Part of it is securing the prompt, and part of it is how we write detections, right? So the same way like we write detections with KQL and we store the KQL as code, we're thinking about these detections almost like instead of writing detections, we're writing these prompts. And we are the best at writing prompts for security because we're replacing some of that KQL with natural language. We're replacing some of that KQL with different other calls to other connectors and other places. But our job is to try to make the investigation process more repeatable and more standardized and more scalable, which is why we're trying to bring those DevOps practices in. So we should be securing the code base. We should be securing the way we write the code. We should be securing the way that people interact with the application, right? And we should be monitoring it during runtime, right? So in our same model here, from a Security Copilot perspective, deploying Security Copilot is one thing. And all the security tools you need alongside to monitor how people are using Security Copilot are important. But in this specific instance, what I'm trying to tease out, right, is if I didn't have every security analyst typing things into a box, what is the right level of how much needs to be pre-written for them versus how much of it is actually them needing to write it? And what you realize, even with a lot of writing, stick with this writing analogy, is that where people usually fall is in a Mad Lib. And for those of you guys who don't know what a Mad Lib is, right, that's having a sentence that's missing and has like blanks in it. So my
Okay.
over the blank. Okay, well, is it a dog jumping over a bone? Is it a human? My dog Joey jumped over a bush? Right? Is
So is that
maybe
like a
jumping what
template?
they're doing?
Is it like a template
Uh-huh.
where people give
It is
someone, they can fill in the
exactly.
blank?
And they
Okay.
fill in the blanks, right? And so what we find is that good security copilot use cases and prompts are almost all written in this templated version where, Nicholas, you give me a noun, you give me a verb, right? But instead of
Yeah.
nouns and verbs, there are IP addresses or IP ranges, or maybe instead of a verb, it's something like SIDS, like give me the SIDS for these 6 users, right? And with those SIDS track, they're the token exchange that goes between, Microsoft Graph and the sign-in logs for Active Directory, right? But it's those
Okay.
types of those types of fill in the blanks that are where folks like you and I, when we're investigating security incidents, need the most help. And what we want from the template is the right syntax and the right sentences. Because saying, Mona and Nicholas jumped happily, or Mona jumped and Nicholas jumped happily, or happily, Mona and Nicholas
Yeah.
jumped, right? You start to see that the same problem exists in
Oh
the way that you
yeah,
write
it
the
comes up as a
sentence,
verb. Yeah.
right? So, if I wanted the sentence to always say, Mona and Nicholas jumped happily, right? Versus Mona jumped and Nicholas jumped happily, right? The AI is actually going to give us different answers, even though you and I know that the same things are happening. Both Mona
Yeah.
and Nicholas jumped, right? But you can even see just in the tense, right? Mona and Nicholas are jumping, right? Mona and Nicholas jumped. Mona and Nicholas sat, right? Maybe it
Mm.
wasn't even Mona and Nicholas, maybe it was 2 other people, right? But knowing where to do those interchanges, right, is almost become the new art. So when we do something like figuring out how much something is going to cost in Security Copilot, there's a couple of different ways to think about cost or cost implications, right? One is I have no idea how many questions someone's going to ask. I have no idea what the sentence length is. How could I ever predict how much, implementing any of these things will be? And my model is if we have the template controls for token length, it controls for repeatability. And if it's just different IP addresses or just different device names, it's much easier to change those 2 or 3 or 5 things than it is to hard
Yeah.
code without variables, right? The same question and hope that Mona and Nicholas, in seeing the same picture of these 2 little kids jumping over a log, would actually write the sentence the same way. And the reality is that
Oh,
that's not going to happen.
yeah, but the template is like a logs, like in activity logs, you get to see or
Yeah,
the
so we can
IP
use
address,
the
the name, everything. So and you
Yeah,
just have
so I don't
to.
have to go and search for those anymore, right? So instead of doing
Yeah.
a KQL where I'm doing a threat hunt and I'm
Yeah.
looking for, in these specific tables or looking in this specific thing, I could say, well, I have all this automation that does, a phishing investigation or does a user investigation, whatever generic thing you have to do. But the 2 or 5 or 6 things about the user that I want to investigate are going to be a slightly different each time. If it's an unfamiliar sign-in versus a brute force attack, I'm not going to actually ask for the same investigation about the user either, right? So what I want to be able to do is have as much templated as possible, and then solve for that problem by keeping these prompts in a repository and having a merge process for changes to those sentences and having a QA process for those sentences that mirror exactly the kinds of things you would do if you were building an application.
Okay,
It's
that
just
might
a
be
little
one
bit
of
of
the
a
good
different.
way for someone to learn Security Copilot because they get the templates and get the
Yes,
speed
think
of
about the
things.
templates.
Yeah.
100%. There are some built-in templates in Security Copilot that are already written sentences, the whole thing, and they just ask for things like put in the incident ID. But what I'm pushing for, Nicholas, is this idea that you could go in even one step further than the out-of-the-box templates and write your own templates for your own SOC. And in managing and
Okay.
creating those templates, not only do you get control of cost in terms of how many times it's run, but then, Nicholas, you could attach that AI runbook to some other automation, to another logic app, to a different Azure function, and then have the Azure function do something and then hand that off, to a Security Copilot agent, or a different runbook, in Security Copilot to go and do that thing for you. So then you can say, oh, well, if I have 200 phishing investigations a day and this template costs me 3 cents, to run it, then, I can figure out how much it's going to cost me. Because right now it's a little bit harder to understand the pricing for Security Copilot because they have
Yeah.
essentially two different flavors. There's the provisioned SCU and then there's the overage SCU. And those are just like dollar amounts. But there isn't a translation that says how many sentences or what questions can I ask for $4. Like, when you go into an arcade and you're like, you ask your grown up for money and you're like, okay, I want to go play games, and they're like, okay, I'll give you
Yeah.
$20 worth of tokens. That would be like the equivalent of this provisioned SCU, right? My mom or dad gave me, $4, and I can play, 10 games that are each, whatever, 40 cents a piece, or $4, or I can play, one $4 game, or I can play four $1 games. But it's up to me to decide which games I want because it's an arcade,
Yeah.
right? And I could be dumb and spend it all on one $4 game and be done. And that could happen in a month with your Security Copilot, unless you're thinking about it the way I'm explaining it and you're saying, okay, well, I'm not going to let anybody play whatever arcade game they want. I think that the best bang for my buck for this arcade game is to split this $4 across 10 games, right? In which case, I'm gonna, I'm gonna play a lot more games, and I'm gonna have a lot more fun. But you could have a scenario where, man, I only have 2 minutes to play my game, and if I only have 2 minutes, there's no way I could ever get to 10 games. If I really want to have fun, it may make sense sometimes to play that $4 game. But again, a client should be able to make that decision themselves. And they should be able to decide, if this, query for me to go and threat hunt for this user is going to take me a week or take me 10 hours, and I could get it with Security Copilot in 12 minutes or 15 minutes or even 20 minutes. Is it worth it? For me, $4 is worth it. It's absolutely worth it. But again, it's all about like when you're trying to use it. So I would never recommend anybody put every single incident through Security Copilot. It's not designed to be an ingestion thing. It's meant to be, once you've used automation to sift through the things that you can and you narrowed that down, and that's still too big of a pile, right? 20 phishing investigations for one analyst in a day is not feasible. If they're all already been through automation and there's a suspicion that they're true positives, whether they're benign or not. So yeah, an easy way for somebody to start working on these things would be to take a start with the Microsoft prompt books and then start looking at the sentences and saying, what are the things that should be variables instead of being hard coded?
It's, I guess if someone keep using like Security Copilot as the only tool, it ran out of like instances and usage, and they
Oh
were
my gosh,
hard
you can
to
run
keep
over.
using it.
Yeah.
That's why you
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
combine it with another tool and use it as a secondary or third, like a just so like a checking over everything. So just
Yeah, that's another great
take
use
over your
case.
work.
Yeah, if you really
Yeah,
have 2 or 5 or 15, where you're like, I really don't know, they're like fishy enough where I like don't feel comfortable. I mean,
yeah,
that makes it. I mean, it's just another great use case. The analogy I like to use is, you don't always go and buy a car every time something that you want to put in your car doesn't fit. You go and you rent a car. Security
yeah. You
Copilot
try
is really
first.
like that, right? my main daily driver vehicle is I have a 2015 Subaru Legacy, right? But if I want to build myself a new deck, well, the boards that I need to fit the wood that I would buy, well, it would never fit in my Subaru. Does that mean I should go and sell my Subaru and buy a whole new car just so I can fit wood in it? I'm not a carpenter, so it doesn't really make sense. For me, it makes way more sense to go and rent a truck to get the material home or pay somebody to bring that to me than it would be for me to go and buy that car. And so in a lot of scenarios, in a lot of cases, I like to think about Security Copilot like that. Unless you really know what you're doing, driving a big truck that has, these big logs on the back of it, and you want to cut all those logs up, you really probably should let someone else do it. Get it? Logs, carpentry. Okay. Anyways, that's a bad joke. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah. So aside from, so before we get started, can you just explain like what you do on a day-to-day with Security Copilot and how
absolutely.
how you got an idea of like syntaxing with it, and how did you figure it out? Something.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first sat down and I started using Security Copilot, I was one of the first early adopters when Security Copilot came out about 2 years ago. Not this past April, but the April before that. And so when Security Copilot first came out, it was very much about how do you know how to ask it the right questions. And so I realized it isn't actually about how do you know what the questions are to ask? It's how do you know in what way to ask the questions? Because it's almost like talking to a sphinx or something that's, you have to talk to something with like, it's like riddles, right? It's like, well, if you don't actually just ask it in this exact way. And so that became this like obsession of mine of like, how do you figure out how this thing is ever being repeatable? I can't get it to tell me the same answer twice. And then I started realizing that the way in which I was asking the questions were different, and who was asking them at what time of day, with what data, all started making all of these different levers that you could pull about when and how you start using Security Copilot. And I quickly realized, because of this running out of money at the arcade problem, that sitting there and just like asking questions was a terrible use of my time and of how much it costs to run these things. And I had realized that a lot of the things that we had solved for in security operations around detections and the way that we write detections and SIM as code could all be translated into Security Copilot just the same way. And if anything, it became easier because instead of coding variables into the KQL, right? So I could reference this or that or whatever other variable that I was trying to reference in the detection logic, that I could do the same thing with sentences. And whether it's a Mad Lib over here or a Mad Lib over there, I kept seeing all of these parallels. Security Copilot has this idea of connectors. Sentinel has this idea of connectors. Security Copilot has this concept of content. So does Sentinel. When you think about integrations with other third-party other things, well, you can integrate those with other SOAR tools. Well, that's the same thing that you can do with Security Copilot. And a lot of those escalation management or report writing or threat intelligence use cases that are auxiliary to the SOC, that take time away from the SOC, doing their own thing, actually are all of the things that Security Copilot ends up being better at than the SOC. So instead of focusing on solving for how do we use AI to do incident triage, I flipped the script. And I said, what about if we use AI to do things that take away time from the SOC to actually do the alert investigation stuff? What are all the things that people get pulled off of in the SOC to go and do other things for? Well, if something's broken or if it's not working correctly, if a customer wants, additional investigation beyond what we, had for them in their first investigation, these incident reports or concepts of like, how am I going to fix this next time, right? Any sort of like lessons learned, documentation, things like that. How does the SOC, actually investigate things? Like all of that stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, if we just had other tools that helped us with things like knowledge management, content, design, things that help us scale, like these templates, maybe that's the better use and better pragmatic AI approach than it is to have an AI powered SOC that is trying to put AI everywhere. And that's kind of how we ended up here today. That idea of taking, run books or things that the SOC was doing that are things that take away from the SOC end up being the things that end up being the most valuable. So that's why I think if you look at things like conditional access agents, or you look at some of the out of the box agents for threat intelligence or DLP investigations, they all have the same mission. They're all the things that are in the SOC that are really hard to do if it's not your day job. So making it something else's job, in this case AI, means that it's been transformative in the way that the SOC has gotten time back to do the things that they really care about. So
wouldn't that be more expensive than if you get the AI to do other things that you're not primarily meant to do?
Well, so this is the thing, right? If you think about today in SOC operations and what the SOC is being asked to do, they're asked to do things like breach and attack simulation. They're asked to do things like pen testing, vulnerability management, oftentimes SOC investigation relevant things, and they all in point management, right? Sometimes ends up being part of the SOC's remit. So it really depends, right? Like if you just do all of this SOC investigation stuff, it's going to be insanely expensive because we're still seeing, in the trillions of alert signals a day in order of magnitude. Let Microsoft do that. Microsoft already put AI in their own detection engines in the unified SecOps portal. We don't need to be doing that. But we need to be focusing our efforts on all the things that are kind of auxiliary, but still necessary to do a good job in the SOC. And that's where I think Security Copilot ends up being the most
that's why you
beneficial.
just focus on the client and your infrastructure, whether it's code-based, secrets, or anything secure that using the Security Copilot prompt still.
You can, yeah. I mean, if I was trying to develop a better, key vault or secrets or rotating secrets, or I had some issue where I was trying to develop or design other things for my security operations team, you absolutely can. Whether or not you're securing the AI infrastructure or you're using AI to do the investigations, things start to get mushy there in the middle. And so you just have to really be careful about where you're trying to use Security Copilot to help with infrastructure or policies or fixing things that are broken versus this triage, investigation, escalation, more specific to the SOC problem, because Security Copilot can be used for both. And in fact, if you look at a lot of the other work that some other folks have been doing around Security Copilot, they have been more focused on IT help desk or IT pros rather than security pros. And I just happen to be one of the security pros who's more on the SOC side using Security Copilot.
Yeah, I think your camera is a bit fuzzy. I don't know if it's you. When I see it, I don't know if it's a camera of mine. Okay, sorry. Let's just continue. So what does your day-to-day job comprise of, Mona?
Oh man, so I work in the global solutions team at Capgemini, which our job is to create and design the offers that are available to all of our solutioners in order to reduce complexity in design and reduce duplication of effort when it comes to solutioning. What we've realized is that, especially for things like SOC transformation or managed detection and response or IT operations, there is a best of practice, best way to do these things. And whether it's customer 200 or customer 2000, we're applying those same learnings and methodologies to a larger program that we are, in every single deployment that we're doing. So you take something like secure remote access or something like intelligence secure, security operations centers. And we transform those into reference architectures and other means of assisting different functions to, again, get to these more repeatable, scalable, well-designed portfolio offers. So within Capgemini, which is where I work right now, we have somewhere north of, I think it's in the 34 kind of different categories of different offers that we have across, IT professional, digital workers, digital experience types of things, cloud infrastructure, database migrations types of things, identity transformations and identity fabric, or, kind of identity first or zero trust, types of infrastructures. And we bring those to life for our clients in ways that help them transform and scale their business. So my day-to-day is made up of working with clients, working on materials that help our solutioners succeed, doing thought leadership and participating in the community, whether it's, things like the Microsoft community or the Open Group, or, other sorts of, international organizations. And then, certainly we have an overlay with not only geographies, but also different business functions. So whether it's manufacturing or health and life sciences or financial services, each of those different industries also has their own unique hot takes on things like cybersecurity. And so our jobs are even more exciting and complex when we try to apply that industry overlay to some of the portfolio things that we're doing. I also work with our R&D teams, all of our teams that are building new things or testing new things. So some of that is, things like security copilots, new agents, or other sorts of R&D features like the Sentinel Data Lake that just came out yesterday. A big portion of my job is also working with our R&D teams to make sure that the things that are coming out that are new are in line with the portfolio and service offerings that we have available for our solutioners today. And then in my in-between, I get to mentor people and work with other people.
Okay, so you're like a high level with the service, working with the client, and like create service offering, how you can embed security in it, but you're not actually hands-on like doing it.
Oh, so when things go super duper wrong, or if something complex, or when they need like a senior architect to come in and talk about strategy and stuff like that. But I would say it's probably like 20 or 30% hands-on, and more 70 or 80% focused on strategy, architecture, design, and scalability for our business.
Okay, so you can work with numerous clients at once and just create lots of like offering for them, like whether it's documentation built in or anything like.
Yeah, it could be. Usually they're when people are purchasing IT solutions, they are also looking for cybersecurity at the same time. And so the idea is, if you're going to do a transformation in any other part of your business, cybersecurity needs to be part of the DNA of that transformation, right?
So it needs to be in a root. Otherwise, if we go to the bottom, there's no way. It's harder
exactly
to fix it.
exactly. So I work with our different portfolio teams that also interact with different other parts of our business. Like we have a ServiceNow practice, we have cloud practices, we have partnerships with AWS and Google, and as well as other types of firms. So our intersection of where we sit is fun, because I do the tactical things and I get to do the strategic things. But I would say that it's rather rare, because I kind of have half of a brain that's a product manager, and I've been a cybersecurity product manager for over 10 years. And I'm also an architect and practitioner, and I've been doing Microsoft cybersecurity, deployments, implementations, testing of new features, for Microsoft for probably over 5 years at this point. And so it's kind of unique in a career path, because usually someone stays in one side or the other. They don't usually straddle both, or usually it's very hard to find people who are capable of doing the client site types of go-to-market engagements, as well as troubleshooting and building, technical reference architectures running full
Okay.
time.
So do you not miss being hands-on, like 50%, like troubleshooting, or you just prefer a bit, like 50-50? So you have
Ah,
more of an
man, this is a
interaction.
good question. I think that when I think about my own abilities and my scale, right? Certainly I'm valuable and could do a deployment, but I think I'm better off trying to help the next 50 deployments go better than the
Yeah.
one that I'm working on than I am
Yeah.
necessarily doing the one thing. I also think I'm at a point in my career where I want to empower others to start
Yeah.
learning and growing and be those practitioners. And if I am a practitioner until I have even more gray hair than I have, then I've failed the next generation of people who are
Yeah.
also trying to
But
work their
you can
way
still
into this field.
lead a team of engineers and still do that by hands-on as well. It just depends on which
You
year.
can, yeah. I think when you get to bigger organizations, when I was working at startups, which is what I was doing for
Yeah.
the last 5 years, I got to do everything just because by the nature of being at a startup,
Yeah.
you just don't have a lot of people, and there's plenty to do and plenty of opportunities. But as I've grown in my career and I've grown kind of through my own experience, what I realized is that I am such a systems thinker
Yeah.
that fixing the system that the individuals are working in and being so frustrated that the screws are not next to the screwdrivers. Uh, Ultimately, like I'd rather fix the screws being closer to the screwdrivers than showing up to my job cell and looking down and saying, okay, I guess I got these screwdrivers and this screw here, and I guess the way I'm going to do it is going to be the way that it is. So I think that's always kind of been this continuous improvement part of me. That's like I'm never satisfied just working with one client or doing one thing. I'd much rather learn from the deployment of doing multiples of these and really encourage others in their career to continue to grow and build themselves. One of the things this right about being an MVP is that
Yeah.
our job is to bring others along with us along the way. And especially in cybersecurity, there just are not enough people. So me gatekeeping or being the only one, who can do the deployments or keeping that knowledge to myself, like it just doesn't do it for me. I just don't think that there ever are going to be enough people. And so my job is to say, oh yeah, no, you look like you could do this. And know what?
Yeah.
You could even be the one to say that the screws and screwdrivers should go in a different place. But yeah, I mean, there are some
Yeah,
days that
that's
I
good.
miss it, but I think that there are so many other things that are going on in the world that I'd much rather be like a tier 3 support person to those
Yeah.
engineers than being, the hands-on engineer. Though I do think everybody in their life should have to do some level of client deployment, client engagement, hands-on types of work, whether it's design or implementation, to really feel the love of why there need to be other people,
Yeah, it's the
involved in
same.
some of
Like
these
you
projects.
need to start from like an engineer to see what it's like before you go to your tier, like architecting,
100%.
client face. Otherwise, not sure what it's like. You don't know. You might like it.
Yeah,
So
I think that's the other thing too, is like we talk about there being this growth trajectory of just like becoming a principal and
yeah,
just being a cyber expert in your field. And for all of the yous who are looking for other careers out there, I do think that pivoting to product or sales engineering or solutioning, maybe another place to just look at. And vice versa, if you're coming in and you want to get into cyber and your background is in sales or marketing or those types of things, oftentimes product is a hard place to jump to. But jumping in and starting as a delivery engineer, even if you came in from something like sales, it's going to make you into a way better delivery engineer than some other folks who've never had client-facing experience. So
yeah.
I think there's wins for everybody. And Nicholas, like my undergraduate degree is in anthropology and history. Like I don't have a cybersecurity degree,
So how
but I
did you
do think
shift
it's an
into
opportunity.
cybersecurity without
Oh, it's a
having the
great story.
cybersecurity?
It's a great story. So I was working as a manufacturing engineer in plastics injection molding,
Yeah,
and about probably like after about 4 or 5 years of doing that, I decided to go back to school and get my MBA. So I was still working, and I did my MBA at night. I was working as a plant engineer. The plant ran 24/7. And it turns out that manufacturing, with its supply chain and its multiple layers of people and process and technology that all come together to try to make something, actually gave me an awesome reference point for how cybersecurity works and happens too, because cybersecurity is kind of like applied supply chain, right? When you think about it, I have resources, I have raw goods.
Yeah.
I take those raw goods and I make them into something else. And that something else maybe is an application running in Azure. And then that application gets shipped, to some distributor or some other place, where then that app, if I'm a software development house, right, that app then gets shipped to customers all over the globe in whatever clouds they happen to be in. And when I was doing my MBA, I realized that there were some people who didn't wait to the end of their MBA to switch careers. They started switching like a year or two in, and I was like, man, I should do that. Like, what am I waiting for the end of this? Like, I know that I could do something better than manufacturing, and I would have more fun. So I was like, I wonder what's going on in like software development. Like, I hear that they treat women better. Like, I hear that it's like a better goal.
You switched before you graduate then?
Mm-hmm. I switched before I graduated, and I got a job working at. So in the United States, a lot of research universities have what they call research parks, where they have like little startup companies that they're funded by the university or funded by big companies, and there's this idea of getting kind of this farm system of university graduates into workforces doing whatever. So there was a startup. I'd never heard of it before. They had an opening actually for a project manager, a software project manager. And so I went after that opportunity, saying, I had done project engineering, which is basically the equivalent of project management in manufacturing. And I knew all this stuff about how to build and launch products. And they were like, okay, we'll basically take a bet on you. And because the software they were working on was Linux operating system stuff for the government, like there just really weren't that many applicants. And a lot of the stuff they were like, we're going to have to teach somebody, even if they came in with software background, like it's very rare that people have Linux operating system background in any capacity, really. Still, it's even sort of rare, unless you're, really, in the world of, open source software. But anyways, I digress. My point is that because there were really no other candidates and I was excited and interested in a lot of the stuff, they gave me a chance. And I got the best opportunity to learn about cybersecurity by building cybersecurity software, basically. It was the most meta experience ever. Is at the time when I was learning about cybersecurity, I was a product person. I did project management for about the first 6 or 8 months I was there, and then I got promoted to being the product manager. And product management ended up being my first love. It's the thing that I, really, gravitated to in my career. And so once I realized that cybersecurity software was never going to be easy enough for anybody who wasn't an expert to be able to run successfully or engage with it, I started saying, well, I think that's what I want to dedicate my life to, is this like, okay, we're never going to have enough people to deploy this stuff or run it. So how can we make the running and deployment of these things easier so that the few people we do have aren't just trying to get the dang thing to start, the engine to start, or worried about where the screwdrivers and the screws are. Like, let's focus on, what if the screwdrivers and the screws were all in the right place? How could we make this into a gigafactory? How does software development and how does security, operations become more like a manufacturing Toyota, manufacturing plant? And that's where I've been for the last, probably almost 7 or 8 years. Is I'm in pursuit of creating the Toyota factory equivalent for security operations. I think it's that kind of that simplicity in design and operations that will bring security operations centers from where they are now to where I think they should be.
So what made you think of like the research bit? How did you get to do security research? Were you be told that you need to do some research on security?
I just started learning and poking around in the community.
Yeah.
And it was right around when the CCP started, the Customer Connection Program for Microsoft
Yeah.
started for security, that I
Yeah.
started getting engaged in it. And before I knew it, I was one of the top, contributors, top 10 contributors to the CCP program. And as I started, testing this stuff, what I realized what I was doing is white hat hacking. I was testing these things before they were in
Yeah.
production and finding problems. I just, instead of waiting for the bug bounties and waiting for the point to submit it for MSRC, I would do it before it even got out. And I realized that testing all this new stuff gave me the best advantage for as a product manager too, because I knew what to put on the roadmap because I knew what Microsoft was doing. And it made my IT roadmap or my roadmap for my software design or for my services designs infinitely easier because I knew what was coming next instead of just having to try to design something myself. Because none of us work on things that we can just design in a vacuum and hope Microsoft doesn't change any of it. That's just not how it works, right? If you don't always have like one eye on whatever's coming out next,
Yeah.
on what you're building, you may find that something in your code got deprecated. You may find that this service isn't available or is being replaced by this new thing or this other
Yeah.
thing.
Everything's changing a lot
And it
fast.
will change all the time, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what led me down this R&D path is I don't want to get surprised. There have to be people who know what's going on before it comes out, and there's no reason I shouldn't be that person. And when I realized that Microsoft really appreciated the PG teams, like they appreciate the feedback, they want to work with people who care deeply about the success of the products. It kind of felt like an insider, yeah, like not a QA person, but really somebody who was used that to make a name for myself, within the Microsoft community. Um, and it's a lot about the intersection, like I said, of design before it comes
Yeah.
out versus white hat hacking before it comes out, that I feel like has really been my passion that I found doing all of this.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. That it sparked after you take part in an open source community with the security program. Oh, I thought it get started after you did some research into security. That's
No, I
why.
mean I learned about security research when I was at Trustwave. They had a
Yeah.
security research team. And that's when I kind of learned that, like, even if we implemented this perfectly and there were people who knew how to run it,
Yeah.
their bad guys are changing stuff all the time. And so it's
Yeah.
not
So you have to
even
stay
enough that
ahead.
exactly, right? It's not even that I can just run what I have really, really well. It's that I have to know that, there's some, 14-year-old who's trying to jiggery rig their way out of the house in the middle of the night at any given moment, right? So it's not just about how well I built the windows or how good I put a lock on the door, right? It's about, well, who's going to try to get out through the chimney? And I never thought anybody would go out the chimney but Santa Claus. And suddenly here I have my
Yeah.
14-year-old trying to scurry their way out. But right, we never think about people using things for other things in the way they were designed. As a designer, I know that. I never thought someone would use a screwdriver to, steal a car.
Yeah.
If I would have known somebody would have done that with a screwdriver, I never would I have created a screwdriver? No, I
Yeah.
never
It's
thought
like
about that because I only thought about all of the
everything.
great, wonderful ways someone could use a
Everything
screwdriver.
in your in your environment in like Azure stuff, it's burnable. So think of everything.
Yep.
Everyone like uses and stuff. That's how you have to think of it. Otherwise, you're able to find vulnerabilities and things.
Well, and it's always like, well, the vulnerabilities that you thought wouldn't ever be the ones that are found, right? So, in my analogy of like, I can use a screwdriver to steal a car, right? I could use
Yeah.
that Azure storage blob to infect your entire organization. And you never maybe even thought of that storage blob being used for something bad. You put the storage blob there for something good, right? So, I think that's why we always need two different mindsets, the builders and the breakers. And the good people are both builders and breakers. If you're ever just a builder or just a breaker, I really don't think that you're doing anybody truly a good service. And so if you're ever just a researcher and you're not a builder, or you're a builder and you're not also playing with the research, That's actually how I think security vulnerabilities end up happening the most commonly. But we really have
Yeah.
this, like, it's a loop, right? They should all be informing each other, and if everyone's talking to each other, then theoretically the builders and the breakers will develop the best things together rather than
Yeah,
doing
it's
it on their
like
own.
in terms of security, all the departments would have to communicate to each other about whether it's alerts or anything, or like
Yeah,
all
we have that
teams.
problem a ton. Yeah, where it's like a game of hot potato every time there's a 0 day. Well, no, you're supposed to patch this. Well, I told you that it was exploitable. Well, now it's exploited. What do we do? Well, I told you that it was right. And that's like ultimately not useful. What's more
Yeah.
useful is when is the patch coming out? How do we measure whether we're patched? How do we know if our third parties are patched? Like, let's get
Yeah.
out of like he said, she said, they said, whatever, right? It's really about not just us here today, but all everyone else who's connected to us. And sometimes we just like get myopic about the way we think about this stuff, and you're like, oh, I contained it. It's my problem's done. It's somebody else's problem now, and it's just like that doesn't scale, and it's not the way that security operations is ever gonna succeed.
Yeah. So you'll just have to think about how you can stop it, for like how you can protect something. If you like, for example, it's if something were leaked, for example, a code in your like one of your GA account in code, for example, you have to figure how you can stop that using the best practice and stuff, things. It's the same mindset. So you have to have an engineer mindset as an architect mindset, as well as security mindset.
100%. I think that you can't spell security without you and I, right? So it's
Yeah.
the same kind of problem statement. Yeah, I think that if we go through security awareness training, don't click the phishing link, don't do this, right? But then when it comes to architecture and design, we say things like, oh yeah, just give that SPN global admin access, and you're like, please, one, don't use SPNs anymore, and two, don't grant it global admin access. But those types of translating best practices in the way we live our lives to best practices in code, or any of those kinds of things, are also places where I think there's a huge opportunity for organizations to step back and say, oh yeah, actually there's a better way to do that.
Okay. So let's dive into some aside from your work into security, let's dive into some amazing community stuff you did aside from like CPP, the Customer Connection Program. Are you I see you've been doing like quite a lot of community stuff. So you've been like taking part in feedbacks as well. So giving people feedback to the product team. And I saw that you're quite active and stuff. Could you want to tell us more about what you do for the community?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think being part of the security community, like I mentioned, like these just aren't enough
Yeah.
people. So I picked a couple of different avenues to invest in. One is called Azure Zero to Hero, or the Zero to Hero community, and that's
Yeah.
really geared at new learners and people who are trying to get into either Azure or into cybersecurity. The Azure Zero to Hero community has weekly sessions where we bring speakers to teach people about new things. We have a learning community as part of Microsoft Learn. And we have a massive YouTube following in terms of just getting people access to good new content from talented speakers has been a really big point of what we've been trying to do. And from Zero to Hero, my big thing has been bringing more women and more diversified speakers to want to come and participate, to help bring up the number of minority individuals who are participating in things like cybersecurity. The second group that I am part of is something called the MS Farsi Learn Community. So سلام بر همه. اگه شما دارین منو گوش میدین، من خیلی هیجان انگیز هستم که شما دارین ثبت نام میکنین. But for our Persian language speakers, out there, non-Persian language speakers out there, that I just said hello to everybody and said thank you. I'm excited that you're tuning in. But what that community is focused around is bringing Persian language speakers to the world of Azure, to Microsoft. Persian language speakers are part of one of the largest diaspora populations in the world. And both due to geopolitical issues and religious tensions, we have found Persian language speakers scattered all over the globe. And in a lot of cases, where they have been professionals in their field at home, it's not possible for them to do that in the place they've relocated. And a lot of them have had to kind of reskill, re-engineer. It's the problem of every family who's ever immigrated anywhere, right? A lot of times you have to start over. And so what we've tried to do is create a community of other Persian language speakers who can help and build a community and a learning journey for those Persian language speakers, knowing that there really isn't very much, if any, content that's in their native language. And a lot of times that first step is finding community and finding people who have shared values and shared shared language. And so MS Farsi has been another investment of mine. And then the last one that I've been invested in is something called Rock Stars, Women Rock Stars in AI and Cybersecurity. And that's an initiative that's been part of Team Copilot. So Team Copilot, as well as the Rock Stars for AI and Women in Security, have both been female-focused leadership and guidance around building your AI network of other AI professionals, and also finding community and other successful women who are in leadership positions around AI or cybersecurity. And what we've been doing with those communities is largely, again, trying to focus on visibility and education, and showing that the barrier to entry and the types of people who are working on AI and cybersecurity are the same kind of people that they see in the mirror. And so, just trying to grow, again, different ways of thinking about community and different ways of thinking about education across those three different, new learners, refugees and other language speakers, and also women, in AI and cybersecurity have been places that I really tried to invest in over the last year. And it's been incredible meeting so many fantastic practitioners and learning from other people's experiences in both cybersecurity and AI. Definitely kudos to all of the people who have been investing and participating in those types of growth opportunities as well. It's definitely not just a me thing. There are so many other people who I've been working with alongside the way.
Nice. Yeah, it's like what you said, finding your community, whether it's cybersecurity will be different. But it's good that you're doing the different language. I can't remember what's the Narari community.
Farsi, yeah.
Yeah, Aussie
Yeah.
community. Yeah. I guess Saeed, right? He's part of it as
Yes,
well.
Saeed is the other
Yeah.
one of the other. Yeah, shout out to
Yeah.
Saeed Dahl. He's another Microsoft MVP, who has been one of the leaders. Hamid Sadiq. Let's see. Yeah, Hamid Sadiq Pour Saleh is another one. Mohsen Akhavan is another one. Shahab. Shout out to all of them. Puya, we've really tried to do a good job of getting native, or in my case, my dad's Persian, my mom's American, Farsi speakers from the entire world. So we have representation in Canada, United States, Australia, Sweden, the Netherlands, and it's truly been it's been an amazing experience connecting with the Persian diaspora of Azure and even cybersecurity experts. It's been there's quite a few of us. So it's been a really exciting thing for me, being part of the community. I found so many other people who are looking for other people just like themselves, who really do feel like this place is so big and the world is so small. We really should find each other and help each other.
Plus, sometimes people might be nervous of coming out, like reaching out.
Mm-hmm.
So you just need to reach out to the individual that need help.
Yeah, sometimes it's all just about, like I said, seeing somebody who looks like you in the mirror to make you feel comfortable or feel like you have a place. And that's always been, my thesis statement, and any community stuff I do. There's always somewhere for you to sit next to me. You always have somebody to say hi to in the halls at a conference. I want everyone to feel that this is some place where they feel like they belong, and not somewhere where they have to prove to other people that they belong.
Okay. Yeah, because I think normally in DevOps, when people like sit down, like stand up together. It's like open floor, like so that someone can come and speak to you. It's similar approach like it is for you.
Yeah,
Quite
make
nice.
the stand up so that people come. That's exactly right. Yeah, make the space. There's a
Open. Yeah,
movie.
you
Yeah,
like
there's a movie. It's called The Field of
close
Dreams.
conversation.
If you build it, they will come. If you give people the space to make them feel like there is room for them to come to a stand up and speak openly, they will.
Yeah.
If you don't have a stand up, you're going to have the same, kind of nonsense that was happening the week before because nobody changed anything because nobody said anything to anybody else. So you're exactly
Mm.
right. The concept of there being stand-ups or there being places where people will always be is a tremendous differentiator.
Yeah. Plus, you're part of Expert Life USA, so you've been
Oh
doing a
yeah,
lot.
that's
You've
another
been
one.
busy.
Yeah, I mean that's yeah. Because in terms of conferences, those everything I talked about were all like online communities.
Okay.
I've also definitely over the last year taken another step into not just being a conference participant, but also being a conference organizer. And yeah, Experts Live US, October 10th. Still buy your tickets. Call for papers is closed. But we're very excited to bring Experts Live to the United States. Similarly, Workplace Ninjas, which is one of John's project, John Tolles,
Yeah.
Towles. He's been working on, again, bringing the same kind of concept. We have really strong European presence, but not really much in the Americas. That's going to be in December, I believe, on the 10th as well, or it's right around the 10th, in Dallas. And we're trying to bring US speakers. We're trying to bring the same kind of user group, user community that we have seen in Europe be so successful to the United States. We have the right practitioners. We just don't have a place for them to all go and talk to each other. And I think what we're
Yeah.
trying to do is really create those same types of communities and opportunities for people to learn and grow from each other in the United States that exist pretty strongly within the UK or North and Central Europe.
Yeah, because I know there's quite a few developer community like conference in America, but not a lot of
Mhm.
like security things as well. So
No, it's a lot of SharePoint, a lot of M365.
365, yeah,
Yeah. Not a lot of Azure. And there's a couple of
mm,
good, user groups. Shout out to the Boston user group. Those great ones that are happening in the Twin Cities.
yeah,
But they're kind of scattered all over the place. So, but yeah, I
yeah.
think
The only
definitely that
one that I'll
community is.
recommend is KCDC. That's a developer one, but it's not really in security. It's not part of security. It's like
Mm.
if you're in DevOps or developer, you probably will go to that.
Yeah, it's not really that DevSecOps
Yeah,
security, type of thing. Security folks, we have our generic conferences like Black Hat, some of the Gartner conferences, RSA, those types of things, right? But they're not
yeah,
they're not Microsoft cyber specific, and they're not even specific even to just like one part of security, right? It's all security, all vendors. And so I think the other kind of interesting thing, if you're thinking about getting into security, is that we need all types. We need folks with development backgrounds, the folks with identity backgrounds, folks with DevOps experience or application testing or GRC. Like we need all types, right? But when you start thinking about the intersection of where do you find community, it's very difficult. It's either generic cyber or it's Microsoft specific, but not security. So I think that there's a huge opportunity for us in the United States to really build that, and I want to be one of the people who helps build it.
nice. That's one of the ambition for the future. Help like
Absolutely,
accelerate
absolutely.
more people in cybersecurity.
I
And that's
mean,
what.
so there were 26 Security Copilot MVPs this year, and I'm the only woman. I would like for that to be different next year.
What, the only woman in the program or any woman in America?
In both, in Security Copilot, all up globally, and also in the United
Okay.
States,
Wow.
both. Well, so the United States has five, but I'm the only
Yeah.
woman of the five. And then of the 26 of us, I'm the only woman in the world. So,
Yeah, but I think there's more women in security and like women in security. So
so
whether
women
it's
in
being a security
security for
MVP and those things.
MVPs, yeah, I will give shout outs to Sucheta. Gawade, who's amazing. She's a SIM and XDR and Intune. And then Sana, who's I think her last name is Tamran or something like that. She's out of Sweden. She's another XDR lady. So yeah, I mean, they do exist, but they're generally at the intersection of SIM and XDR and something else. So like SIM and XDR and identity, SIM and XDR and Intune or things like that. Not SIM and XDR and security Copilot.
Oh, okay. So instead of security Copilot focus,
yeah,
like
that's new for me this year. I used to be cloud security and SIM and XDR. So I too came from a different part of the world, from cloud security, kind of more into security Copilot. But I think that's all to say that this world of ours is rapidly consolidating. And to your point, I hope that there will be more women in XDR and SIM and SOC operations, but then also in security Copilot and AI and other AI applications. I really do think that we just need more people, and we need more places that want to encourage and empower women to be successful at work too. So
yeah, it could be like here, for example, you can build something locally, like a local community, like nearby where you live and stuff, like where there is a place to advertise local women.
Yeah, it doesn't take very much.
Whether it's doing hackathon or stuff or teach them security, it could be those things, simple things.
Oh, it takes very little. I find that security is such a hot topic these days that, even at a wedding, I was talking to a guy and he was like, oh, I really would love to learn more about how this security stuff works in Microsoft. And I was like, well, let me teach you. But you never know where you might find your next group of people to collaborate on or work on stuff with. And those types of communities are really great. I'll give another shout out to Ehsan Eskandari. He does a fantastic user group up in Toronto, where it's mostly focused on .NET, but he does security stuff too. And I've had the luxury of speaking to his user groups too. So there are some really, really talented MVPs and other folks that are doing this, but that's not to say that there are enough. Even if you're not an MVP or you're somebody who just wants to connect with other people, B-sides are always really good for cyber. And then, there are Microsoft specific user groups. There's a Sentinel user group that's based out of Europe. There's, ones that, like I said, in Boston and Toronto and Twin Cities. Dallas has a really great community. But here's your call to action. Go find them. Go meet some people. And if you have the opportunity,
what are some of the places people can use to go find them? Whether it's you can choose Eventbrite, Meetup, or anything. Really.
I use so communitydays.org, Microsoft communitydays.org is a really, really great one where they list. Shout out to Tom Daly who runs that page. But it's a great place from a centralization perspective to just see what's out there and available. Sessionize is another good one. Sessionize will show you who has calls for papers. And even if you don't want to be a presenter, you could still reach out to the person who's in charge of that group and say, hey, I want to get involved, or I don't know how to get involved, or I'd like to, participate in, just as a listener, or I want to give my first conference talk. Those are all really good places to get started too. And if you're in the Microsoft MVP program, there are specific opportunities and ways to engage, as well as part of, Microsoft Reactor. If you want to, participate in one of Microsoft's, ways of bringing in people to connect, that's another way to engage beyond the user groups themselves.
Yeah. It makes me curious whether there's any student ambassador that's really into security that just come from university, those things, aside from being a professional.
Well, if there are any student ambassadors out there that want to hang out with some security people, call me. Find me on LinkedIn. I don't know of any security student ambassadors yet. That's not to say that they don't exist. But I definitely think that there is a huge opportunity. And some folks have started doing this. They've got like student staffed SOC operations. now where they're like it's like a student job that you can have on campus. You could work in the help desk, you could work in the SOC, which I thought was kind of also like an interesting way of getting more people introduced into cybersecurity, is like having it as your campus job.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess that's probably one of the way to get experience. Like if someone couldn't get like internship in security companies,
Yeah.
but in
Start
security
looking
they
at
can just do
colleges
that.
that have, it's look for a college that has a college job listed as sitting in the SOC. There are a couple out there that I think honestly you'll get a better take and more industry experience working in a SOC than you would in some other places. And if you have the chance to choose between a college job working in the help desk or working in the SOC, I would choose the SOC any day of the week over dealing with whatever people poured into their computers or whatever doesn't work with their phones.
As in SOC, do you mean security operation? Or
Yeah, computer
okay.
operations center. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So, so I would say if you're earlier in your career, you're trying to pick a college, or security operations is something that isn't on your radar, it's a great way to also try it. Try it for a semester.
Yeah.
If you hate it, then at least you don't want to go and get a job working in the SOC. But even that semester of time will help you with way more practical applications of how to use what you may have learned in school. And then the other thing is these Microsoft certifications will count for college credit. So, if you're somebody who dropped out of college or maybe is trying to get back into it or just has a couple of credits left to finish, other than getting a campus job and getting exposure that way, you can always also go in and get Microsoft certifications, and they could be worth 3 or 4 credits a pop.
Okay. Yeah. That's another way student can get experience. It's like apprenticeship as well, so that's a good way.
Yeah,
Good to look
absolutely.
into.
Yeah, so you could do apprenticeships, you could do certifications, and you could do these user groups, and all of those are going to be like new career ways of breaking into the Microsoft ecosystem for sure.
Yeah. So do a bit, everything, but not too much like you. But
Yeah, well, I
yeah,
don't think I definitely do too much, but I think I've always suffered from wanting to do and help out as much as I can in any given instance wherever I can. But yeah, Nicholas, thank you so much for having me. It was
no
really great to have a
worries.
chance
Thanks for
to talk to you and your audience. And yeah, if anyone wants to reach out or connect with me on LinkedIn, you can find me, Mona Ghadiri. And I would, love to continue any of the conversations that we've had here with any of our listeners if they're interested.
Yeah. So if there's any question, you can just directly message Mana. Anything regarding security, community, or
Yeah, if
syntax
you want to get
defense, we'll
involved in
talk
the
about
security community, yeah, for sure.
anything
Yeah,
really.
yeah,
So
absolutely. I'm a
thank,
friendly face. Thank you so
okay,
much.
no worries. Thanks for joining. Bye.
Yep. Bye.
Ah.